Alright, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, coming at you from my backyard garden. Just admiring the beauty of my garden. I mean, look at this. Look at these peppers. I mean, these are insane. There's different varieties kind of congealing over into these other ones. Got these nice dark leaf ones. You know, they're kind of like purple. They're turning red, ripening ever so slowly. I got, you know, just these guys here. These guys up here, I mean, 60 varieties of peppers this year. They're all doing really great. Anyways, today's episode is not talking about peppers or any other beautiful things happening in my garden, including my tree collards that are just going off right now. I got so many. Juiced over 1.5 pounds yesterday. But today's episode actually is the last of the series of episodes that I filmed at the Heirloom Expo. I know many of you guys have asked for this actually. And so what I did was actually I filmed the presentation I gave at the Heirloom Expo. So if you were not able to be there, I highly encourage you guys to be there next year. You guys saw in these past 3 videos on the GYG channel, you know, just some of the things that have happened there. And I mean, I was there a full solid 3 days. I was so busy doing stuff, I could barely pump out any videos for you guys. But that being said, I think I'd still manage to pump out like 2-3 hours of footage for you guys. So hope you guys enjoy. So anyways, without further ado, I want to get into today's episode. And today's episode is sharing the talk I gave at the National Heirloom Expo this year. It's simply titled, "The 2 Best Ways to Use Your Crops or Your Harvest or whatever you're growing in your life to get them into you, to eat them or whatever, so that you can be the healthiest." It also goes into a little bit of my story, why I got into gardening, growing food, and you know, as well as some other things that I do in my life and my background. So hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get to that video.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for coming and having a listen here to my friend, Mr. John Kohler. You probably all know him well. Follow his Raw Foods channel and or his Growing Your Greens channel, which has had, by the way, an insane impact on my business. And that's what John does. He has an incredible impact on each and every one of our lives. Everybody sitting in here, raise your hands, who's had a positive impact on this man's life, huh? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to introduce you to my friend, Mr. John Kohler. He's here to talk to you tonight about health, your greatest wealth. Huh? What else do we have if we don't have our health? I can tell you what, he's had an incredible impact on Boogie Brew. I'm selling 10 times more tea than I ever did, but you sure couldn't fool my bankers yet. So I'm here to introduce you to Mr. John Kohler, who's going to talk to you about the top 2 ways. That's tough. Man, those lists. To use your homegrown, by the way, all right? So grow it alone, grow it at home, but remember, keep on growing, to build your health. Like I said, that's your only wealth. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, please welcome to the 2014 National Heirloom Expo, my good friend, Mr. John Kohler. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. All right. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. Today I'll just be giving a simple talk, the 2 top ways to utilize the produce you're growing to increase your health. Many of you guys may know my story and many other guys may not. If you watch my videos, I do share my story online. And for those of you guys that do not already follow me online, you may want to check me out. My website is GrowingYourGreens.com. For those of you guys that have not known it, and for those of you guys that do know it, I mean, for the people that didn't know it, write it down because you saw the people's lives that I've impacted. And I can't even walk here for a couple minutes and get stopped again. And it really means a lot to me that I'm able to help so many people, just in one man with this camera. Now, the reason why I got on this whole path, many of you guys may know, but many of you guys may not know, is because actually here in Santa Rosa, I almost lost my life. And this is something that nobody wants to happen. I was hospitalized with spinal meningitis. The doctors told me that I might not make it out alive. And there's no cure for the spinal meningitis I had, so I can only say I got through higher powers. But when I was in the hospital, I realized what was the most important. And I mean, I just graduated college, I didn't have a lot of money or anything, but I thought, man, John, like when you get out of college, you're supposed to get a high-paying job, make a lot of money, and have all this money in the bank, and have a nice car, a nice house, nice wife, and all this kind of stuff. I didn't have any of that. And I thought, well, John, even if you had $1 million and a really nice car outside waiting for you outside the hospital, like what good would that do you right now? Right now, like could you write a check, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, do not cash unless John walks out of here? Like all the money in the world could have saved me. And I mean, people that are millionaires, gazillionaires, trillionaires lose their lives all the time because they're so busy chasing something, in my opinion, that's not super important, that maybe we're led to believe in our society that is important, you know, like money. So it was at that point when I was in the hospital that I really realized like what was the most important thing, because I was about to lose it, and it was my life. My life is the most important thing. And I want everybody, you know, in here to start valuing your health, even if it's just a little bit more. Because, I mean, I'm really grateful today that I woke up this morning, because some people didn't wake up. And I try to always live, you know, with an attitude of gratitude. And, you know, because I almost lost my life and made it out of that situation, you know, one of the things I vowed is that I would never put myself in that situation again, because I was doing things unknowingly that made me end up there, like just like eating the standard American diet. And I thought I ate healthy. I'd quit eating red meat. I read my ingredient labels like I'm supposed to. Shopped mostly at health food stores, and I know many of you guys might be doing this today. But that still ended me up in the hospital. And I asked the doctors, well, why did I get sick? And none of my other fraternity brothers I was playing broomball with the night before, why didn't anybody else get sick except me? And so the doctor said I had what's called complement immune deficiency. And basically what they said was they blamed a chronically weak immune system on me getting sick, and that I have a weaker immune system than the average person. So many of you guys may have seen the Boy in the Bubble movie back in the old 70s or whatever, and then the standard person, the boy in the bubble, if he got out of the bubble, he's gonna lose his life. Like, I'm not as bad as the boy in the bubble, but I'm not like a normal person that has a pretty good immune system. I may be somewhere in the middle. So I really needed to pay attention to build my health so that I wouldn't put myself in that situation again, because the doctor said I could get spinal meningitis again or some other disease and then not be so lucky and come out of it. So when I left the hospital, because my life was the most important thing to me, I decided, man, John, you got to figure out how to build your immune system and build your health so that you're never in here again. And so that led me into like making dietary changes in my life. And then, one of the principles I live my life is CANI. It stands for C-A-N-I. It stands for constant and never-ending improvement. And this is one of the techniques that the Japanese used, after we bombed them in the World War, and we sent Deming, which is a businessman over there, to teach him this philosophy of constant and never-ending improvement. And that's why, back in the day, companies like Sony, and even today, companies like Toyota and Honda, they make very dependable cars. I'm trying to sell my parents' car right now. It's a 1992 Honda Civic with 229,000 miles, original engine. They change the oil religiously. They've done all the service. And if you need to buy one of these cars, it's quite dependable. It's asking $1,600.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, I thought I'd get that in there. But anyways, it's been quite dependable, and it's never really had any major issues. Yeah, the power steering went out, and they just changed that last year and whatnot, and they got to buy new tires and brakes and all that. But it's very dependable, and this is because this model of constant and never-ending improvement, even if they think they got something good, they're going to dissect it and figure out how they could do it more efficiently, how they could stamp this, trunk panel better, how they could, make the seat in the new Honda Fits actually, instead of just fold down and be flat, you could actually fold it up so you could actually put plants that are pretty tall in your back seat, which is really cool. Because I always thought it's just dumb how a lot of cars are made, and they do these things. And in my opinion, the American car makers haven't kind of kept up with all this stuff. And so this is kind of the technique or the philosophy that I live my life by. I've increased my health by changing my diet, eating some of the best foods on the planet, which is fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. But the problem is, even if I'm buying conventional food, in the supermarket, or even organic food, it's grown by big agriculture. And, big agriculture is concerned with basically one thing. Once again, we're going into that money realm, and that kind of tends to taint things, when they're just into the business of growing organic food. We're talking big companies here, for profits. And even most farmers, they have to feed their families. And when it comes down to it, they got to look at the financials, and they have to be profitable. And I'd like to say there are ways that be profitable and still grow high quality food. But the fact of the matter is, most people, most farms, industrial agriculture is not growing high quality food. So that's why I got into growing my own crops, and I started sharing this at my YouTube channel, growingyourgreens.com. I presently have 172,000 people that follow my work, so I'm the largest and most watched internet gardener online. My shows are 100% free. I have about 980 shows right now when I show how I converted my front lawn into an all raised bed edible vegetable garden. I just live in a standard suburban tract home. I don't live on acreage or anything, and this is just to show what people could do in their situation, in their spot, because most people live in a standard suburban tract home. And it is really easy, and I just basically documented how to do that in my videos, and then I show how I'm mixing the soil, how I plant the plants, how I'm building new raised beds, and then when I travel for fun, I like to just travel, and I visit farms in different places and meet people and get to interview them and show what other people are doing. So basically, I just try to be I don't know, right, yeah, an evangelist in one sense, but also just kind of show examples of what other people are doing, because, you know, you might like one idea, oh, John did this, I like that, or you might think, oh man, John's ideas suck, but oh man, John went to this place, but I saw this, and this is really cool. Like, I met several people here, told me that they liked, you know, oh, this episode that you had at this place, I really like that idea, and so there's always something to glean, you know, from my videos, and my videos, one of the reasons for that is every time I make a video, one of my goals is to kind of have a message in the video, a point that I want to get across, kind of like the old Leave It to Beaver, you know, yeah, the older guys are laughing, because the Beaver always learns something at the end of the Leave It to Beaver episode, and I always try to teach you guys something at the end of my videos, and so hopefully I'll be able to be effective with that for you guys today. So anyway, so that's why I started growing my own food once again, because I was already eating a really good diet. Fresh fruits and vegetables, the best thing on the planet. Most people do not eat enough. The standard American diet is very deficient in fruits and vegetables. They're just trying to get you to eat 5 to 9 servings a day. I probably eat 20 to 30 servings a day. Because I don't want mediocre health, because mediocre health ended me up in the hospital. I want the highest level of health so that I don't end up in the hospital again. And you know, I found it through eating fruits and vegetables. And then more importantly, my latest study and why I got into gardening is because fruits and vegetables are the best to eat, but what if, you know, you're buying fruits and vegetables that aren't that good from the store? And I could do much better. I'm making all the stuff here except for the watermelon I grew in my garden, and actually it was just harvested, this stuff was all harvested today. That was harvested a while back. But I mean, this stuff, like all the produce in my garden, I use things like rock dust and worm castings, a compost tea that I get from Josh. And all these things basically build the soil. It builds the soil health. The health of the soil is the health of the plants. And then when I eat the plants, you know, that all becomes into me. And it's a really big cycle, and people worry about feeding the plants. No, we really want to feed and build the soil above all else. And that's what I try to do. I just try to build the soil, and, you know, nature gives it back to me. So, you know, that's why I want to share with you guys the best ways to use your crops, because a lot of people may do canning, they may do, you know, cooking up their zucchinis and barbecuing them, and, you know, in my opinion, that's not the best way to be using your crops. For me, the best way to use our crops is to use them in their raw and natural states. I mean, no other animal on earth cooks its food, and I think we should eat a good percentage of raw foods in our diet that's uncooked, and eat those because they have the highest level of nutrition. They also have enzymes. Once you start cooking and heating food, you lose all the enzymes, which are like basically catalysts in the food that help digestion and many processes in the body. It also lowers nutrition, especially some of the most important nutrients. They're called phytochemicals and phytonutrients, which is what I'm most after. Some of these nutrients that are the most health protective. And actually, I forgot, in the walk-in cooler, in the fridge, inside the kitchen, on the top shelf, there's a little bag with some of my greens. So can maybe grab that for me? Thanks. I was thinking phytochemicals, where's my kale? All right. Yeah. But yeah, harvested dinosaur kale from my garden today, and that's really rich in phytochemicals. And it's some of these family of plants, like the cauliflower plants or cruciferous plants, broccoli, you know, bok choy, kale. All these things have really powerful nutrients in there that have been shown to help prevent cancer and fight cancer and things like that. There's different studies on broccoli sprouts to prevent cancer. Another family of plants that are really valuable are the allium family plants, garlic and the onions, really valuable to prevent cancer. And once again, you know, I want to not get these things. I'm going to be proactive in my life, you know, just like my dad changed the oil in his Honda, and it's run 229,000 miles with no engine rebuild, and you know, you guys take care of the engines, but you got to take care of your bodies, because you only get one. You could rebuild the engine, you can't rebuild yourself if you lose your health. So yeah, inside here we got some we got some cool stuff. We got some dinosaur kale picked out of my garden, grows really well. And then the other thing I got is something really cool, really rich in phytochemicals and phytonutrients. How many people know what this is? Anybody? Celery lovage. Those would be excellent guesses. They're kind of this is all related to those guys.
That's not parsley.
No, not parsley. So this is actually called ashataba. So that was a trick question because nobody probably knew what this was. But this is that's why I'm telling you guys about it. So this is ashataba, also known as Angelica kieskei, and this is related to Angelica. So if somebody said Angelica, that would have been pretty close. And actually, it's really funny because this stuff actually bleeds this. I don't know if you guys could see that. It's pretty small. It bleeds a yellow sap. So like if we break this off, like we bleed red, this stuff bleeds yellow. And in this yellow coloring, there's these things called chalcones, which are very powerful antioxidants, and they've done research in Japan. This is originally grown in Japan, in Honshu Island in Japan, special place with really rich soil, and this variety of Angelica came up, and they've done a lot of research, and it's really cancer preventative and all this kind of stuff, you know. So that I try to include this in my diet also, you know, and I mean, another reason why I like to grow food is because you just can't buy some of the things I want to eat. I go to the health food trade shows. Actually, next week I'll be in Baltimore, Maryland for the Natural Products Expo East, which is the second largest trade show for the health food industry. And I go there, and like how I learned about ashataba is because I saw in the health food industry they're selling powdered supplement pills of ashataba. So I'm like, oh, the ashataba, and they had all this research and data and clinical experience on it. Like, man, that stuff's good. I'm going to start to take that. But wait, I'm like, wait, well, what's better than little pills and bottles that you got to keep rebuying, right? Grow a plant and you have it forever, and you could make the seeds and you could spread it to people and you could share it. And freshest is always bestest. That's what I like to say. I mean, once you start processing things, it breaks down and you lose nutrition in there. If you have any questions, please write them down, and I will have a session at the end for questions. But yeah, so I mean, it's some of these powerful phytochemicals and phytonutrients is why I'm eating my food. I mean, yeah, we all need calories, but the problem with Americans' diet today is that they're eating far too many calories, like fast food, junk foods. We know these foods are high in calories, but if you look at the nutrition facts of fast foods and junk foods, it has like, you know, very little to no nutrition. These are, the leafy greens especially, are the highest in nutrients, phytochemicals, phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals, and very low in calories. And so that's what I'm simply going to share with you guys today, two of the best ways that I've learned to use the crops of my garden to basically get them into me so that I can now have these phytochemicals and protective phytonutrients into me so that I will not get sick and I could have the best health and fire on all 8 cylinders. So yeah, those are simply, very quickly, juicing and blending. Now I know some of you guys might be thinking, well, John, the juicer, what that does, you put something in the juicer, out one side comes the fiber, and the other side comes the liquid. So you're getting rid of the fiber, and we all need fiber. Fiber is very important in the human diet, and it's absolutely important. But if you're still eating chicken, beef, turkey, you know, pigs, all those foods have no fiber. So don't complain about me juicing when you're eating all these foods that don't have the fiber, and in addition have been proven, you can check out at nutritionfacts.org, to, you know, be a big factor in causing disease, in my opinion. You know, so so when you juice the leafy greens, especially because we're not made like a cow, we can't digest the fiber in the leafy greens. You know, we don't have 3 stomachs and regurgitate and all this kind of stuff. But the juicer literally extracts the fiber and liberates it from the juice. And Jay Kordich, formerly known as the Juice Man, who I saw last year, he's in his 92nd year, I believe now, is promoted juicing back in the 90s, and that's what got me into juicing. Yeah, he said it's the juice of the fiber that feeds you, and that's what really it does. So this morning I juiced like watermelon. Watermelon's amazing juice, and you might be thinking, John, well, you know, watermelon, why do you juice it when you can just put it in the blender because it's so easy to blend up? Well, when you put it in the blender, you keep the fiber, and also the thing that many people don't realize about the blender is that when you're running the blender, it's running at incredible fast speeds. If you have a Vitamix, it runs at in excess of 20,000 RPMs. This blender probably runs at excess of 15,000 RPMs. So every revolution, it's doing a couple things. It's sucking in air because it's creating a vortex. It's basically adding more oxygen to whatever you're blending, so it actually is going to rise in the amount of liquid you're containing, so it'll have small air bubbles in there that'll actually oxidize the food. One of the doctors, Dr. Brian Clement, says you lose like 95% of nutrition in the blender. I don't know that I'd go that far, but you know, in my opinion, it's always better to do something more low speed, like this juicer here runs at an 80 RPMs. And yes, I do blend and I juice in my life. I do both. I think they both have their benefits. And you know, whichever one you could do. I mean, if John, I'm not going to use a juicer because it's a pain in the butt to clean. This one takes me 3 minutes to clean. But if that's too long for you, you know, I could wash the blender out in 30 seconds. Any way you guys could get the fruits and vegetables in you is definitely a good way. I want to go ahead and show you guys 2 quick recipes. So let's see. First, I think we're going to use a juicer. Super simple, super easy. Here's a cucumber from my garden. How many people know what this is? Armenian cucumber. All right, let's test here. What's this one? Lemon cucumber. All right, what's this one? That's a standard market more. Okay, now this cucumber. Achicha, who knew that? Right there. All right, so actually I've dried achicha. Look, this is like the ultimate seed packet right here. So what this is the achicha. These are small, these are Bolivian cucumbers. And these taste different than a regular cucumber. These in my garden have been more like hardy. So like when the frost comes and I get powdery mildew on my regular cucumbers, these guys are still producing for me. But these guys do take a little bit longer until they start producing. So like you'll plant them, they'll grow, they'll be a big vine. And John, it's not producing yet. Well, that's because they take a while. But yeah, nature's seed package is basically what happens is this just gets bigger. It kind of turns into like from a green, and this is still very immature and small. They get bigger, then they turn from a light green, dark green to a light green to yellow, and then they just dry out like this. And all the seeds are contained within here. I brought a bunch, so we're just going to throw a bunch out to people because I like to give people treats and see and how far I could throw. And it's always fun to spread my seeds around. If you know what I mean. I got a girlfriend now, so I'm saving all my seeds for her. So, all right, there's one more. Oh, I still got a lot more. Who didn't get one? All right, let me see how far I can reach these. Right. Boom. All right, 2 left. Right in the back. One more. All right. Oh, I got one more. All right. Who wants it? All right. Sorry. I like having fun too. All right. Yeah, and spreading seeds out too. So. What's the name of that again? That's called Bolivian cucumber or achicha. It's A-C-H. I don't know. I can't spell. Look up Bolivian cucumber on Google. You'll find it. Yeah, so anyways, I got to get juice in here. We're running out of time. So we're just going to go ahead and juice my Armenian cucumber. One of the cool things is I sell different juicers. I have to give you guys a disclaimer. DiscountJuicers.com is my website. I test all the different varieties of juicers. I have YouTube videos comparing one juicer against the other, and everybody always asks me, John, what's the best juicer? Well, it's kind of like asking a lady, what's your favorite pair of shoes or your best pair of shoes? And it depends on the event or the occasion you're going to. If you're going out running, you're going to wear some running shoes. If you're going to go to the beach, you're going to wear some sandals. And for me, like, a juicer is simply a tool. I have a whole collection of shovels. I also have a whole collection of juicers, depending on what I'm juicing. Most people are not, going to only have one juicer, and I'm sure some ladies out here maybe only have one screwdriver. But I got a lot, my videos are basically there to help people determine the right juicer that's best going to work for them. And I like this one particularly because it's literally auto-feeding. You literally sit something in there, you don't have to deal with it, and it just sucks it right in there for you. One of my normal juices I like to make is basically just a cucumber, celery, and some leafy greens from my garden. So I think today we will use some of the kale. Sometimes I like to pre-cut the kale. It works a little bit better in the juicer. And this is just a very simple and easy to make green juice. And once again, we're breaking down the cell walls of the kale to get the nutrients out. And you're going to see here pretty soon, a nice dark green mixture coming out. And this is simply, you're seeing the chlorophyll and all the nutrients that have been liberated. If you think about it, we are nothing more or less than juice extractors. If we eat something, right, at one end of us comes a liquid and one end comes a solids, right? So when we do this already and we separate out the solids, our body doesn't have to deal with the solids. And we get the instant nutrition. I mean, this stuff is much more easily digested than food. And this is especially true if you're not chewing your food well. I encourage everybody to masticate their food well. That means chew your food well. Like if you put it in the Vitamix blender, it'll take me seriously like an hour or 2 hours to eat my dinner of a big, large salad every night. And the salad should be your main course, in my opinion. If you want more information about a really good healthy diet style, I would recommend, there's a book by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, Eat to Live. He also has come out with subsequent books as well on the topic. Dr. Joel Fuhrman, I recommend his eating style, where he recommends eating nutrient-dense foods, whether that's to lose weight or have the highest level of health. That's one of the diets that I definitely like a lot. I personally eat a raw nutritarian style diet, so I eat raw foods with very high nutrients in there because, once again, I want to be as healthy as I can. So we're just cranking all this kale in, and a lot of juicers, can't process the kale like this juicer can. This runs at a low RPM. Many people may see the high-speed juicers. Sounds like an airplane taking off in your kitchen. And on the leafy greens, those are very, very inefficient. So we're just going to go ahead and drop this cucumber in. It's a little bit thick for the spout, so we got to help it in there a little bit. And then once we get it in there a little bit, it should start dropping in and juicing. So yeah, even these big squashes, like I was juicing pumpkins last year. I had pumpkins. I grew the Kakai hull-less pumpkins. So they have the seeds without the hulls on there. So if you like eating pumpkin seeds, but you got to get that white hull off. The Kakai hull-less pumpkins grow the little green seeds like you get at the health food store that you can just eat straight up. And man, I tell you, like the difference between the ones from Mexico that they import and sell at the health food store from the ones that I grew and dehydrated at low temperature, they're almost salty on their own without adding anything, especially all the little testa or the little strings that hold on to the seeds. I just dehydrated that, all that and the seeds. Is so delicious. But like pumpkin apple juice, this juicer does it. I have videos on it. It's so amazing to drink pumpkin apple juice. So even large squashes, when they get big, they'll go right through the juicer. And the most nutrients in the food is actually in the skin. We want really this rich coloring and the pigments in there. And by juicing them, you'll get a nice, dark, rich, colorful juice. So I always recommend making colorful juices whenever you can, and eat the rainbow, very important. So yeah, we just juiced a bunch of stuff up now. We have, about 20 ounces of juice. Super simple, super easy. That just might be one meal for me right there. On average, I'll drink between 32 ounces to 64 ounces of juice a day. I like green juices the best, but sometimes, I'll do fruit juices. But I think it's very important to get your leafy greens in. Once again, these are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, have the most phytochemicals, phytonutrients that are the most protective, and most Americans are simply not eating enough leafy greens. For example, on kale, I think the per capita consumption of kale in America is like a quarter pound per year. Think about it. Unless you're like getting it on the side of your sandwich or something, most people just don't eat kale. And that's ridiculous. My goal is to eat 2 pounds of leafy greens a day. Now, do I always do that? No, but if I take 1 pound of leafy greens through the juicer, it's 1 pound of leafy greens. That's a lot of greens, right? That's a lot to eat. But if I stick 1 pound of leafy greens through the juicer, I get only 1 cup of juice. So now I have all the concentrated nutrients from the pound of greens in 1 cup of juice. There's 1 pound down, and my next pound will probably go in my blender. And that's what I'm going to show you guys next, actually. So the next thing I want to show you and demonstrate is simply what I call a blended soup. You may have heard of green smoothie. That's another way to get your greens in. Super simple, super easy. For a green smoothie, basically, you're going to just put some water in the blender. You're going to put some bananas in the blender. That makes it nice and sweet. And then just put, a few leafy green leaves, especially if you have kids. Many of them may not be used to eating their dark leafy greens. So do all bananas, all water, and then just do like 1 leaf. And that's going to taste so sweet, they're not even going to know the greens are there unless it's only because it's green. And then, add 2 leaves, 3 leaves, and see the point where they start complaining. And then back off a little bit. And then you guys could do that too. You guys are laughing. Even adults could do this, because I know I've made some nasty creations in the juicer and the blender. Trust me. I've had to hold my nose and get it down. This is all organic produce, man. I'm not wasting it. So my rule of thumb is this, you want to try to keep everything under 5 ingredients. Don't make everything but the kitchen sink blended smoothies and, juices and whatnot. And in many cases, I might just use 3 ingredients. So like the perfect mix for me would be like, if I had some celery, I'd have celery, cucumbers, and some leafy greens. And the leafy greens out of my garden are much more mild. Your juicer doesn't care if they have big bug holes in it. So that's some of the ways I like to use my big ones. When I'm feeling special, I'll harvest all my little baby leaves if I have a mass abundance, because the baby leaves are more tender. They're not quite as strong tasting. This is especially important on things like the kale, to get those greens in me. Going back to the blender, so that's the green smoothie, basically water, bananas, and some greens. You could also do water, apples, and some greens, or I like to do sometimes just orange juice and greens. Basically, we want to get more greens into us. And besides the green smoothie, another thing I like to do is called the blended salad, and this is many times what I eat for dinner. I travel a lot, and many times I'm on the go, and I can't just sit down and eat my food for literally an hour or two and chew my food and masticate it into a mush. I mean, this is why we feed babies baby food. You ever think about that? Why do we feed babies baby food? Well, because they don't have teeth. They can't break everything down into a mush, so we gotta feed them the mush, right? And so because we have teeth, we're also supposed to break our food down into a mush to get the optimal absorption and digestion out of it, to mix it with our salivary amylase, the enzymes in our saliva, to chew it up. Because our body, we don't have teeth in our stomachs or anything like that. We got, probiotics and beneficial bacteria and yeast that help break down the food, which is the probiotics for our guts, which we also need probiotics in our soil. It's kind of funny, soil health and human health, they're very closely linked, and this is going to be coming out more and more in the future. But yeah, so that's why I like to process the foods, to break it down, to make the work easier for my internal flora. So what we're going to do, basically, we're going to make a blended salad. So instead of eating a salad and everything I would eat and have to chew up, I just put it in the blender, and then I could just take it and drink it down. Now, it's very important when drinking a juice or a blended smoothie is to be sure to still chew your food. Just because it's in a liquid state, don't just gulp it down. Oh, this wheatgrass tastes nasty, and drink it. You want to swish it around, mix it with some saliva in there, and drink it and savor it slowly like you would a fine wine. And sometimes I make things that taste so good, I'm just simply amazed, and especially when I'm eating things out of my garden that are grown in rock dust and especially sweet and flavorful. So, and my recipe every night, it always changes. I never make the same thing twice, because what I eat every day is based on like what I have ripe and ready in my garden. Right now I have the bounty of summer here. I have abundant like cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers and basil and achachas and all kinds of different stuff I could be using. And so I'll pick the ripest stuff, the things that I want to eat, and then that's what goes into my smoothie, or my blended salad, and it always changes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to put in 1 tomato. It's especially important when loading up your blender is to put all the watery liquids in first. So it wouldn't necessarily be too good to put in like leafy greens first, because then it wouldn't really blend too well. I do recommend a high power blender. It's very important to have a high power blender that will really break up the food. If you just have one of those cheap, $20 jobbies from Walmart, they're just not powerful enough. They'll leave really large fragments and bits, and it will not be as fun of an experience. I really want to have the finest particle size. So they have the Vitamix booth inside, and I recommend the Vitamix blender. It'll really fractionate the food and turn it into like the smallest particle size that I've tested, and I've tested many blenders on the market. And it's the particle size is very important, so we get the best digestion. Other than the Vitamix, because that's a $500 unit, this one's actually a fairly good one. It's actually called the Wolfgang Puck Professional, and it's like 1.6 horsepower. The Vitamix is like 2+ horsepower. And I do have a few of these available today. See me afterwards if you're interested. This is only $70, so much more affordable. But yeah, high power blender, very important, especially to grind up all the leafy greens. So we're going to go ahead and throw 1 tomato in there. Let's go ahead and put a couple more tomatoes in there, and let's go ahead and put maybe like 2 lemon cucumbers in there, like pre-chop them so they'll be blended up a little bit easier. And this could go in my salad. Normally, I'd eat all. Actually, last night I had lettuce and all this similar stuff. Other thing, once again, I want to use these exotic greens that I use. So once again, the best way besides chewing them and eating them, grinding them up into a mush with your teeth, is to put them in the blender. And this has a unique flavor, so you definitely have to get used to it. Like for me, it tastes kind of like halfway between like celery and lettuce. But then I had a friend over, and she tried this stuff, and she's like, that stuff tastes bitter like dandelion. And I'm like, I really don't get that. But also, I'm really used to eating greens just straight out of my garden. I like to just go outside, and sometimes I don't even make a salad or anything. I just go outside and snack on all the different foods. I mean, we've all done that in our garden, but I literally will make a meal out of all that stuff. And I want to share, the best part of any plant to eat, especially if you're eating the leafy greens, is always the baby greens. Always the youngest growth. There's the most like plant hormones in there. And also they're the most tenderest part of the plant. Like the baby leaves, wow. It tastes kind of like this. You just have to grow this to try it. It's so unique. I love it. It's an acquired taste, I suppose. Some people might not like it. But yeah, so now we got some tomatoes, some cucumbers, some greens. Let's put a couple peppers in there. One of the things that I'm not really keen on is like labeling all the stuff I grow. So like I just kind of throw it in, and as long as it's food, I'll eat it. I'm like, oh, that variety was this variety, and I have no idea. It's all food to me. Get to eat it. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and... Now you could put the seeds in here because the blender will grind up the seeds too. I like to just take them out for whatever reason. One of the things I like to do also is just add one little hot pepper. So we have one little hot pepper. That'll add some spice to it. And one of the things I do not like to do is actually necessarily add like salt to my foods. I believe, most Americans eat far too much salt, and eating too much salt, in my opinion, is not a healthy thing. So I try to add spices and things and different flavors so that I do not have to add the salt. So now, besides all the stuff out of my garden, I like to add a few other things, and actually another really excellent way to process the food out of your garden is to ferment it. After juicing and blending, I think fermented foods are one of the best ways, because what you're doing is you're taking the nutrition in the vegetables that you've grown, and then you're fermenting it, creating more lactobacillus or lactic acid bacteria, which are basically the beneficial microbes in our guts that help us digest our food. And so, that's very important to have a good flora in your gut. Now, besides eating the probiotic-rich foods, all the fruits and vegetables basically will encourage probiotics in your stomach, because fruits and vegetables are known as prebiotics. Some fruits and vegetables are better than others, such as Jerusalem artichokes, have the inulin, also the yacon, very high in inulin, so that'll foster the growth of the probiotics. And one of the coolest things recently that I learned is that there's this beneficial yeast, which is also known as a probiotic. I know everybody knows about Candida and it's a bad yeast, but there's actually a good yeast. And the way that people would get it before they started packaging it up and putting it in bottles and selling it to you at the health food store was actually on the skin of lychee. How many people have eaten lychee? So on the skin of lychee, they found this yeast that grew naturally on the lychee, and when people would eat the lychee, they would eat some of the skin or something, and then they get this beneficial yeast that has all this research about it nowadays to help your digestion and all this kind of stuff that actually kicks ass against the bad yeast. But yeah, so anyways, I want to mention, so making your own krauts. I didn't have my own kraut today, so I got some of this kraut here. It's actually called Farm to Ferments, and this is a company out of Windsor. They actually just have a booth right over there. This is some of the best sauerkraut or fermented foods I've had. Now, this one, the name is escaping me, but it's an El Salvadorian recipe of a ferment, and this stuff is off the hook. So every night for dinner, I usually like to add some of the fermented foods into my blended salad. So this gives you that umami flavor, which is really cool. There's also a little bit of salt in here, but it's mostly for the flavor. Plus, I'm also basically putting the probiotics in there so that I'm going to get them. Now, another thing, this would be kind of plain if I didn't have any rich body, because I don't eat any animal products or meats. What I like to use is nuts. So I don't have any nuts today, but what I did get is actually this nut butter. It's actually from the Philosopher's Stone Ground, and they're a company actually inside the Grace Pavilion, and they make some of the best almond butter that I've ever tasted in my life. I don't particularly digest almonds too well, for whatever reason, but this almond butter I could digest much better, because most almonds, well, if you're buying raw almonds in the store, number one, they're not raw, and most raw almond butters are not really raw because the almonds have to be pasteurized due to a California state law. So if the nuts were from California, then they've been pasteurized either by heat or even worse by chemicals. And I think it's really sad what companies and the agriculture system is doing to the food system now. Just, we don't really have a say unless you grow your own trees. But what they do is they source almonds from Spain that are not pasteurized, and then they actually take the almonds and then they germinate them. So they soak them in filtered water. They start to sprout. They lose the enzyme inhibitors. They lose some of the bad things that are in the almond. Once you start to sprout a seed, it starts to germinate and basically have more nutrition in there. Also, the fat percentage lowers a little bit. So then they sprout it, and then they take the nuts and then they dehydrate them at 115 degrees, which is a low temperature. and then they stone grind them for like 6 hours. I mean, this is like artisan quality, like nut butters right here. And I just actually tasted it yesterday for the first time, and man, this stuff's insane. So we're just gonna go ahead and put a bunch of nut butter in there. So you could use nut butter, tahini, some just nuts, because if you have a powerful enough blender, it'll actually just blend it on up for you. And I mean, this would be something like my sample dinner. Of course, I'd usually add like probably a lot more leafy greens to it. And then I would just take it and I would blend it up. Yeah, so normally my dinner, and if I make dinner like blended like this, it'd be all the way up to the top. I mean, this would just be my meal. And I mean, this is probably the best stuff you could eat, stuff out of your garden that you grew in nutrient-dense soil, with the rock dust, with the worm castings, all that kind of stuff. If you want to learn more about the gardening, because I didn't really talk about that tonight, you want to check me out at growingyourgreens.com once again. And yeah, I want to encourage everybody to eat more fruits and vegetables. And even if if it's hard for you to do that because you just don't like it, I mean, juicing really compacts it down and makes it really simple and easy to get 1 pound of leafy greens, or like 1 pound of carrots. I could take 1 pound of carrots. Carrots are the cheapest vegetable to buy in the store. They're simple to grow also, but you could take 1 pound of carrots and juice it. You get 1 cup of juice approximately, and now you have all the nutrients, beta carotene and all this kind of stuff into you. I mean, one of the other things I want to talk about real quick on blending versus juicing, people always say, John, I like to use the whole food. It just makes more sense because it's got the fiber. Well, number one, I talked about the oxidation that occurs with the blender. But the other thing that I didn't mention is that if you go to one of these places that take incurables, so like, places that people have cancer and the doctors say, oh, you just got 6 months to live, you're at the end of your life, you're screwed. There's places that take these patients, like it's one called the Gerson Therapy, they're actually down in Mexico now. And then there's one called Hippocrates Health Institute down in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's these places, like, they don't feed people blended smoothies to get people better from cancer. They feed them juices because they know that the juices go right in, and they've been doing this for 20 plus years now. And that's really the power of juicing versus blending. I mean, if you're really sick, then juicing. If you're pretty healthy now, yeah, do blending. But I'm doing both because I want the best of both worlds, and I want to have the highest level of health and not end up in the hospital again. So yeah, that's my final thought to you guys. Just eat more fruits and vegetables. Whether you got to eat them whole, crunch them up, chew them into a mush, whether you got to juice them, whether you got to blend them, fruits and vegetables for the win. All right. Okay. So I'll take any questions if anybody have any questions on anything. Yes?
How do you spell that Angelica?
Quisque. So I could spell that Ashitaba as Ashitaba. And if you want to learn more about the Ashitaba, there's one of the experts that I learned about the Ashitaba about here at the fairgrounds. If you go over actually to right behind where the animals are, there's like this big greenhouse on a trailer, and you're going to want to talk to John over there. And that's where I got my original Ashitaba from, and he's done so much research on this stuff, it'll baffle your mind. Yes?
Is that the celery?
Yeah, the Ashitaba looks like the celery. That's the healing green, my favorite healing green.
Are you growing that?
I am growing that, yes.
So we can get the seeds from someplace.
Yeah, so the seeds, you could get it from John out there. He also sells the plants, and that's the place you'd get that. If you want to do it online, I always recommend him first. A place called Horizon Herbs sells it online, for those of you guys that are watching it on YouTube right now. But I get it from him. He's local in Bolinas, and he has tons of seeds and plants available.
He's in the trailer
Behind the animal area, so if you just go straight out these doors here, you'll...
Behind us here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
So what's the brand name on that juicer?
Oh, sorry, yeah, so the brand name on this juicer, this is called the Omega Vert Juicer. I sell many different models. I have this one available here at the show for $100 off the retail price. But there's so many different kinds. My favorite kind of juicer is this style. It's known as a vertical single auger juicer because they run at a low RPMs and they tend to handle a wide variety of produce very well. And there's differences between all the different models out there. And I have videos showing the differences, unboxing them, and explaining this online at youtube.com/rawfoods. Or if you just go to youtube.com and type in discount juicers, you'll find my videos. Yes, in the back.
A lot of times I'm traveling, so I don't get to eat too much kale or juicing over the blender. But what I've been doing is I've been eating a lot of spirulina and beet powder. How do you feel about that, kind of like supplementing my diet when I don't have kale?
Sure, the question is, how do you feel about spirulina and beet powder compared to kale? So I always like to say fresh is his bestest, but of course if you're eating spirulina and beet powder instead of hamburgers, McDonald's, fast food, even junk food bars from the health food store. That's way better, but I would encourage you, especially when traveling, you know, I like to harvest wild weeds sometimes. And no matter where I am, there's always a supermarket that has, you know, Sprouts or something like that. And I usually travel with my NutriBullet small blender. They're available for like 80 bucks at Costco, or you get them at Target for about 100 bucks. It's a very powerful blender, not quite the Vitamix, but it's the most powerful blender for the cheapest price at the smallest format. So you could stick on eating fruits and vegetables and get that in while you are traveling. Trust me, I travel a lot, and I'm able to keep up this diet. Yes?
What's the best way to identify wild weeds that you can eat?
So the question is, what's the best way to identify wild weeds you could eat? I'm definitely not an expert on this subject. So I'm going to say consult with a local expert in your area. I know in this area they have wild weed food walks, where you'll just go out with people, herbalists or whatever, and they'll share with you the edible weeds. One of the things I like to do is actually get the weeds when I'm on those walks and get the seeds and bring them back into my garden and then grow them. So I have a relationship and intimately familiar with those plants because I grow them. I see their whole life cycle in my garden. Plus I'm growing, in my opinion, higher nutrition weeds than you could just get in nature, because in nature you don't know what's in the soil, and yeah, it's probably better than standard agriculture, but it's probably not better than the soil when I'm bringing in rock dust and adding the microbes and the minerals and all this stuff in my garden. So I have super weeds. Yes?
2 questions. One is, what percent of your fruits versus your vegetables do you eat, and how do you get your protein in your diet?
Good question. So the question is, what's the percentage of fruits and the vegetables that I eat, and how do I get my protein in the diet? I'll answer the easiest question first. The easiest question is, how do I get the protein in my diet if I'm eating fruits and vegetables? So I can answer that in many ways, because I've been asked this question over the last 19 years, because I've been on this diet for 19 years. This is not, I mean, this is still an experiment for me, but it's a 19-year experiment that I think is working pretty well. I'm fit and trim, and generally people like to say, if I ask them how old I am, they generally guess about 10 years younger than I really am, actually. So, but yeah, the protein is really a no-brainer. As long as you're eating enough calories, you're going to get protein. If you take a look at like a chicken or a cow, what do they eat? They eat grains. If they're a cow, they're eating grass, or even worse nowadays, cows are eating just soybeans and corn that are genetically modified. And they're still getting enough protein, and they're still 2,000 pounds. So as long as we eat fruits and vegetables have protein. And in my opinion, you know, one of the big challenges with America is that people have been led this protein myth. So we don't want to focus on protein, in my opinion. You're going to get enough if you eat fruits and vegetables and eat enough quantity, and you're not starving yourself. But we really want to not focus on protein. We want to focus on phytonutrients and phytochemicals, which America has not been focusing on. That's question number one. The other thing is, what percentage of fruits to vegetables? So the majority of my calories in my diet comes from fruit, and then I eat a lot of vegetables. So this is just what I do, and I just recommend finding the balance that works for you. And this is not for my diet. I mean, for me, it's all or nothing. But for everybody out there, it does not have to be all or nothing. The main message that I want to leave you guys with tonight is eat more fruits and vegetables. And even if you're eating other things that don't have fiber, like the eggs, the chicken, the beef, the cheese, I don't care. But increase your fruit and vegetables, eat that, and then your reward is a little bit of cheese, a little bit of meat on top of your salad. I don't really care. My goal is to just eat more nutrient-dense foods and reduce or eliminate, if that's what you want to do, the bad stuff. Yes?
How would you compare this to cold pressing like in a Norwalk juicer?
How would you compare this juicer compared to a cold pressing in a Norwalk juicer is the question. So the Norwalk juicer, you know, the first stage in a Norwalk runs at like 3,000 RPMs or something like that. So it actually runs fairly fast, and you press it out. And I like the cold pressed juices. The cold pressed juices known as the Norwalk and the other juicers, you know, they make a very high nutrient quality juice with good nutrition, and it's also micro-filtered, so it's actually really clean and easy to drink. I've seen studies that certain juicers, like the Green Star Elite juicer, one of the juicers I sell, the company, so it's from the company, did a study between the Norwalk and their juicer, and it showed that their juicer pulled out more nutrition, you know, than the Norwalk does, but it also has infrared and bioceramic technology in there to do that. Now, how does one of these compare? I haven't ever seen the testing, but the fact of the matter is clear. The Norwalk's a $2,500 juicer. Most people cannot afford a $2,500 juicer. This one I'm selling now for about $280. So, you know, you could get 10 of these or one Norwalk approximately, or maybe 9. You know, I'd much rather have one of these because also the Norwalk's a pain in the ass to use. But if you can afford a Norwalk, by all means, any way you could get juices in you is a good thing. Yeah. Yes?
How does that do on grinding up common weeds to juice them?
How does this do with common weeds to juice? All right, so you know, once again, a juicer to me is a tool. Would you use a flathead screwdriver to undo a Phillips head screw? That's kind of like getting this one to juice straight weeds, right? Wild weeds. So it'll kind of work, because we've all gotten that flathead to unscrew that Phillips head. I've done it millions of times. But so this one, you could juice weeds in. It'll kind of generally tend to clog up and not work the best. But the one I would recommend for wild weeds or other medicinal herbs, you know, if you know what I mean, would be the Omega NC800. That by far is the best for things like wheatgrass, for sprouts and weeds, and even medicinal leaves of medicinal plants. Yes?
What's your opinion of yogurt in smoothies?
So what's my opinion of yogurt? So I'm not a big fan of using any animal products myself personally. That's my opinion. So I would rather use, I think the beneficial part of the yogurt is the culture, not necessarily the fermented, you know, milk from another animal. If I did do a yogurt, I would do a human yogurt. One day I'll have a wife that's pregnant and I'll get to do that. Because that's a milk we should be drinking, really. It's human milk. We shouldn't be drinking cow milk, because that's literally little baby calf growth hormone. We feed cow milk, or the cows feed it to their little calves so that they could grow to 2,000 pounds. And I mean, if you're drinking cow milk, I don't know, anyways. So I like the probiotic effect in the cow milk, so instead I like to make like coconut yogurt. So I'll take coconut meat and then put the same probiotics that you put in the milk to curdle it to get the beneficial nutrients, plus there's fat, plus there's medium chain fatty acids in the coconut, you know, that's really good for us as well. So that's my opinion on that. Any other questions? Yes?
So you mentioned rock dust over and over again. I mean, what? Amen. What's so beneficial about that in your garden?
Sure. So the question is, I mentioned rock dust over and over again in my talk. Rock dust is one of the literally unknown nutrients that's in agriculture and even in home garden. If you go to any big nursery, many nurseries, you know, you ask for rock dust, it'll look like you're from the moon. If you go into like Home Depot, Lowe's, they have no clue what rock dust is. They'll try to sell you some gypsum, some kind of, you know, green sand or whatever.
The keynote speakers will be starting in a couple of minutes over.
Okay, sure. I'll finish out. Thank you.
And you can run, your last 1 year, so you can run as long as you need to. I just want to let you know.
Oh, okay, thank you. But yeah, so the rock dust, what it is basically powdered up rocks, and rock dust can be as easy as going to your local rock and stone quarry that are grinding up rocks to put underlayment into streets or, you know, sidewalks to a fine particle size. Or it could be something as good as what I use, which is horticultural grade rock dust, where they've identified certain kinds of rocks that they grind up, put into a fine powder, which now you're adding like 70 different trace minerals into your garden. So most agriculture is concerned with 3 minerals. We're always concerned with the N, the P, and the K, and some agronomists may deal with up to 15, 16 minerals if they're really into it. But, you know, the reason for the rock dust mainly is just trying to get the most nutrients back in the soil. And from my testing experience and some of the experience, how many people here use rock dust and have seen a difference? Like, so look around. So anyways, people that watch my show, I really talk about this because people don't know where it's available. You're lucky you guys are in Santa Rosa right now, because there's a store locally. It's called Lee Ballisters, or The Ballisters. They're on Sebastopol Road. You could buy a bag of like 44 pounds for, I think it's like $20 or something like that. And then they also have, like, the seller inside sells it, but it's like $32. But you got to go to a specialized store. Josh at the Boogie Brew Company, I don't know if he brought any, but he sells like a couple different kinds of rock dust. And each one is a little bit different. So like, I like to just take the different kinds and use them all in my garden to give my plants the nutrients they need, because I've just seen a difference. People out here have used it, have seen a difference. It's because, I mean, I just recommend you guys experiment. If you don't think it's going to work, do your regular potting mix or your regular bed without it, in one bed with tomatoes and the other bed with it, and wait for the whole season and see your yields, see what your plants look like afterwards. You know, and in my opinion, there'll be a difference, and from the opinion of other people that have used it, I mean, this stuff just works. It's very important. It also adds the nutrients and minerals into the food, because, I mean, in this day and age, like, we're supposed to eat like junk food that has low nutrition, then we're supposed to take a vitamin supplement for our minerals and for our vitamins, Centrum A to Z of zinc. Like, why do we need to do this? Did 1,000 years ago, or even 100 years ago, they take A to Z of zinc Centrum? No. Well, they had more nutrients in the soil because they didn't have soil depletion, erosion, chemical fertilizers that are messing up the soil. they had all the nutrients in the soil, and in a closed system, the nutrients cycle. And in our system now, where we're taking crops, tonnage of crops off the land, and we're putting 3 minerals back in, that just doesn't add up for me. So that's why it's super important to like give back to the earth what we're taking out. So like I actually not only try to give back to the earth, but put back more into the earth than I'm taking out, so that my plants are kind of like at a buffet like in Las Vegas. And you're a buffet in Las Vegas, you have all the selection of foods and you don't know what you're gonna eat until you get there. You're like, oh, I want that, I want this. And so like if I put all these minerals in my soil, I just let the plants figure it out because I put it in nature's balance, and the rock dust is what nature's balance is. Yes?
Is that like azomite?
Exactly. Azomite is a brand name. There's Gaia Green Glacial Rock Dust. There's one called Cascade Minerals. There's one called Elamite.
What about sea solids?
Sea solids, excellent point. So sea solids are another excellent way to add the trace minerals into your garden. So the sea salts, there's a company out there called C90. That's one of the products I use. And that's another excellent way to get the minerals in. My friend Don Weaver wrote a book on remineralization. There's several good websites, remineralize.org. There's another website, Soil and Health Library Online, where you could actually download Don Weaver's book on soil remineralization for free in a PDF format. And they recommend about like 80% land minerals like the rock dust and 20% of the sea minerals. And the sea minerals you could actually foil or spray on so that you have a more immediate uptake of the trace minerals into your plants, and they will respond. Yes?
How do you supplement the vegetables during the winter months? Because you don't have tomatoes and...
Sure, so yeah, the question is how do you supplement the vegetables in the winter months when you can't grow tomatoes? So, I mean, as much as I grow my own food, and I like to say I grow 90 to 95% of my vegetables year round, of course, in the wintertime, I'm not growing my own tomatoes, so I just buy tomatoes. Oh, the other thing I didn't show actually in my talk, which I should have, I was supposed to show these. These are tomatoes from my garden. So when I don't have tomatoes in my garden fresh, you know, I dehydrate my excess harvest at a low temperature. So I dehydrate these in the dehydrator at below 118 degrees, which keeps the enzymes more active and keeps more nutrition in there. I didn't add sulfur or anything to these, and these are really nice bright colors. And then so in the wintertime, I'll not only buy tomatoes, and I generally like to buy the Campari tomatoes that are hothouse grown because they have a lot better flavor than even the organic ones that are still pink and bounce. And then I'll mix some of those Camparis in with you know, my dried tomatoes that are high nutrient dense and have really good flavor, and it really ups the flavor, and then also it actually has a thickener to make my blended salad a bit thicker instead of just drinking like a really liquid smoothie. Yes, in the back.
So about hydrating those, I can never cut them straight. Is there a tool so you get the same thickness from...
Yeah, there's many tools. So the standard tool is called a mandolin. There's many different ones out there. I mean, you could buy a $400 mandolin that's made in Japan that has precision slices every single time. That's a waste of money. I mean, if you're just dehydrating the stuff, man, just use a knife. And even if it's not perfectly sliced, the dehydrator doesn't care. And when you're eating it, doesn't really care either.
I do it in the oven, and if I don't do it even, then one turns black and one's not.
I see, sure. So she does it in the oven. So I would recommend just getting the proper tool. Once again, I'm really into proper tools. My grandfather told me, you know, the right tool for the right job, and the dehydrator to me is the right tool to dehydrate. You could also use the sun, make a solar dehydrator. They have some fabulous free plans online that you could make easily, and then actually you could use less power. Yes?
What kind of dehydrator do you use?
So my favorite dehydrator is called the Excalibur brand dehydrator, and that one just kicks butt. I mean, yeah, it just works efficiently, has an adjustable thermostat, flows a lot of air. I only recommend the 9 tray for people that are into gardening and farming because it has like, I don't know, 15 by 15 inch trays that have a lot of space, so you could dehydrate a lot of food. Yes?
Do you keep it outdoors in a covered area, or?
My dehydrator runs in my kitchen. You can run it outdoors. It should be covered if you're going to do that. Yes?
How do you take care of bugs?
The question is, how do I take care of bugs? So, you know, I have many thoughts on bugs, and this could go quite a little bit of time. Number one is I like to plant extra for bugs. So sometimes if I plant extra, then even if the bugs get some or I lose some from disease, I still have some plants. That's the easiest way. Number two, I could use manual control. So people are lazy and they don't like to get out there and pick off all their caterpillars or whatever, and I like to just pick them off one by one. I sit there and smush aphids if I have a small outbreak just with my fingers. you know, that's the next level, like making it, escalating it. The next level, I could use something like a water spray. So spray just high pressure water with a special sprayer that I have, and it just blasts the bugs off the plants. Another thing I could do is like beneficial insects is another thing. And then once we get to a certain point, it gets pretty bad, then I'll break out the neem oil and Dr. Bronner's Salsa soap. So I have a really good episode on this on YouTube where I describe the process. I use a special atomizer sprayer that sprays it out at high volume, so it makes, instead of using a pump sprayer that you'll be there all day, especially when growing a high volume of crops, this atomizer just blasts it and literally makes a fog. It fogs the stuff on everywhere. And that's another way I use. I could also use something like diatomaceous earth. It's a bit powdery and kind of a pain, so I prefer the neem oil and Dr. Bronner's. And that seems to solve most issues. You know, and it depends on a case-by-case basis. I only like to spray when absolutely necessary. Even though it's organic, I still don't like to spray because it could have negative effects, you know, on your soil biology and whatnot. Yes?
I found I just started using the rock dust this year in my garden and some of the boogie brew stuff, and I found like my leaves started getting that waxy residual on there on my cabbage and stuff. It seemed like it got the bugs back.
Yeah, thank you. So that was the other thing I didn't actually mention, he reminded me, is grow healthy plants, right? Healthy people, if you're eating a good healthy diet, you'll get far less sick than someone eating a junk food diet, of course. And so like us are like plants. If we nourish our plants, use something like the Worm Gold Plus worm castings, which will actually increase your plant's immunity that George Hahn outside is talking about, you know, you'll have less bug problems. And I'm still working on it. My garden's not perfect by any means. I make a couple videos on YouTube, and it doesn't mean I'm a perfect gardener. I'm still learning as I grow, and I encourage everybody to learn as they grow as well. Right, you guys made it. I'm so impressed. By statistically, there's less than 10% of you guys, my viewers, that make it all the way to the end, especially when there's these long videos. So if you guys did make it to the end, please give me a thumbs up to let me know that you like this episode. So I'll continue to, you know, film when I give presentations. I give presentations all over about gardening and other topics, and I love to share those with you guys. It makes it really easy for me for an episode, because all I got to do is turn the camera on. I'm giving the presentation anyways, and just upload it to YouTube for those of the people that were not able to get to my episode. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Stay tuned for an upcoming episode. We got a lot of cool ones coming up. We're gonna go inside a medicinal marijuana grow really shortly. We're also going to have that episode with the open source compost tea from Josh and the Boogie Brew Company. So yeah, subscribe if you're not already, and I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming episode. Once again, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, until then, keep on growing.